the evening of the day that Mary Magdalene first knocked on the door and told them the astounding news. It's evening, and nothing seems to have changed for them. The door is locked because they're afraid. Most of them seem to have discounted Mary's words and all they imply. You might imagine that some of them are fearful. Some are arguing with each other, and some have simply disconnected. Thomas has even decided to run an errand, to see a friend, to buy food, to start to go about his daily life again. We don't really know. Point is, he's not with them. And then, Jesus is among them, the remaining 10. He seems to have passed through the walls. He materializes with them inside the locked room. They all stare as he first says, "Peace be with you." Even then, they're stunned. No one makes a move. Then he shows them his hands and his side. And then they rejoice. Then they believe it. They saw him die, at least one of them from the foot of the cross. In order to believe that this is really their resurrected Lord, they have to see evidence of the event that still traumatizes their sleep, their thoughts, their conversations. In the book of John, Jesus is the pre-existent Word made flesh. He was with God in the beginning, and all things were made through him. And then he was made little, particular, mortal. He was made able to die so that he might die, so that he might rise again. The glory of God was with him and in him. And when the disciples lost him, that relationship seemed to end. So the best news is these marks in his hands and his side. They witness to the horrific event that marked him. He is real. He is the one they have known and loved, whom even more has known and loved them. This is still the incarnate one, now resurrected. And this is the story we often call Doubting Thomas. But let's pay attention for a moment. Even though Thomas wasn't with them the first time, even though Jesus came to them and breathed on them the Holy Spirit and gave them directions to forgive each other's sins and be sent out, even then, a week later, they're still in the same house. Only one thing's changed. The doors are just closed, but not locked as they were before. Baby steps. Tiny baby steps, because even the presence of the Holy Spirit and Jesus making them apostles, the sent out ones, didn't seem to make much difference to them. They are not on fire to spread the word. They have told Thomas that Jesus was risen from the dead, but they certainly haven't shown him by their changed lives. Maybe we can call them the doubting disciples and relationship-seeking Thomas. Because that's all Thomas wants, really, his own relationship with the risen Christ. Theologian Caroline Lewis, expert on the Gospel of John, says about this text, Thomas doesn't need proof, but he wants what everyone else has had, a direct encounter. And that direct experience allows him to make that kind of confession, my Lord and my God. This whole gospel is premised on the intimate relationship you have with Jesus. You can't have a vicarious relationship. We, in our time, are not going to see in the same way, but we have a promise of a relationship of our own. And this text shows us that all the senses are involved in believing. And aren't the last words attributed to Jesus here just a little strange? He doesn't say, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet will come to believe." He says, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." As John the Evangelist, in writing this gospel, gives encouragement to his own community several years later because they hadn't seen what had come to believe, he also gives encouragement to us. Those of us, hundreds of generations later, who have heard the story, trusted in its truth, and felt it move us to action. Theologian Matt Skinner pays attention to the continuity and discontinuity in this text. He asks, how is Jesus the same old Jesus? And how is he different? He still bears the marks of crucifixion, but also has a different kind of body that can pass through walls. I would suggest that we each need to know him in an incarnate, physical way, as well as a spiritual way. We pray and read the words of the Bible, which we believe to be inspired by God, and to come to know Jesus better in a spiritual sense. And we feel the water of baptism, and we hold the bread that is his body for us, and drink the wine that is his blood for us. Those are tangible. Touch, taste, smell. We hear each other pray aloud. We hear the bells ring. We hear the proclamation of the gospel, and vocal and instrumental music that moves us. We see his presence all around us in nature and in this place, with the lovely windows and the many ways we act in love, anointing for healing and seeing all people and creatures welcomed in this place. Spiritual and incarnate. I'm about to be away from you for a few months. During this sabbatical time, I look forward, among other things, to getting reacquainted with some aspects of myself. You see, I spend very much time in the spiritual aspects of my faith and life. I read, I pray, I wrestle, I have pastoral care conversations, I discern. What I haven't done lately is skip, or dance, or listen to favorite music tracks for hours, or exercise, or breathe the forest air, or look at the countryside as I drive through it, or walk a labyrinth. As I leave for this time, I encourage you to pray that God might show you where you need balance. If you spend much of your time cooking or gardening or paying bills, you might look at new practices, like praying more regularly, at reading and praying the daily office, or using devotions like Forward Day by Day. And if, like me, you tend to spend more time in your mind and heart, consider paying more attention to your body, how it feels, how it's aligned, how it blesses you through your senses. This second Sunday of Easter, some people feel a bit of a letdown. The flowers with which we flowered the cross last Sunday are gone. Someone this morning had the sad task of throwing away the withered blooms. We left our bells at home today. There's no Easter egg hunt, and my daughters, with their lovely voices, have returned to home and school. Does anyone else feel a bit of a letdown today? Yeah? Well, I know that I do. The preparation that is Lent and Holy Week brings us to a place of emotional intensity that is now dissipated. But Easter is not over. The Gospel of John will be one of our guides as we walk with Jesus through these days, the week of weeks, 49 days until the coming of the Spirit on Pentecost. And here's what I want you to hear today. Those of you who are dealing with health issues, those of you who have little hope, those of you who feel pain on a daily basis, and those of you who wish that you managed your life better, you don't need to work to manufacture Easter joy. It's not up to you. You don't need to pretend that the flowers on the cross are still here and vibrant, or that there are many more people here to pass the peace as there were last week. As Jesus came and stood among his disciples, who didn't know how to react, he comes and stands among us. He is here. He shares his peace with us, breathes the Holy Spirit into us, and sends us forth. Might be tempting sometimes to stay home and lock the doors and become depressed at the changes you see around you. But here's the best news for today. According to another of my colleagues, we seem to forget rather quickly that the stone was rolled away for us. It is not our job to do the heavy lifting. It was not Thomas's job to rejoice with the other disciples when his faith or his circumstances or his grief would not allow. Jesus came and stood with them anyway. Jesus comes and stands with us anyway, even when we don't see him for who he is, even when all we want to do is go back home to bed or mourn about what was lost, or when we lose faith in our future, or when we count every penny. If you hardly remember Easter Sunday, and if you find it hard to have confidence that this sabbatical time is good and necessary for you as well as for me, remember this. He comes and stands with us. Every Sunday is Easter. And because of Easter, as Jesus breathes the Spirit into his disciples, as God breathed into the first human, we now live in a whole new creation. And that is the truth we can trust in as small or as large a way as we can see and touch and taste and hear and smell for ourselves. Christ is risen, and he is among us.